what I want to try and do in this short session is just to try and pull some of the threads together a little bit, and hopefully pull up some debating points for you to think about and for us to talk about later. So there are some statistics on here which are or quotations which are really saying kind of what is the issue. And David referred to the fact that it's potentially the next mis-selling scandal. But wherever people have regrets and things don't work out, they tend to look for somebody to blame. And I think that's where the mis-selling comes from, if things don't work out right. And there was an NAPF survey recently of employees, and 42% said they wish they'd taken an interest in saving for retirement earlier. So there's kind of a regret about not doing it early enough. That's not yet got to the stage of blaming somebody for not telling me, but there is that risk. ABI survey, 53% of people weren't confident they'd have enough to live on, or at least to maintain their standards of living. I'm surprised that's not higher, to be honest, but I think that leads on to the next couple of points, because people don't really know what they don't know. I think Ros said that as well. This from the JP Morgan Asset Management research, that the average that people are saving into a pension, this was the people in the sample, which is a kind of a broad cross-section of employees across in the UK. They were saving 3%, but they were expecting to get an income of 37% at the end. Now, you don't need to be an actuary or a mathematician to figure out that if you pay 33% for over a working lifetime of 40 years, and you draw that for, say, 20 years, and probably people are living longer than that, but let's just say, keep the maths easy, you're paying for 40 years, you draw it for 20 years. So if you're paying 3%, you can take out 6% on that basis. And then this money is going to be invested for, on average, about 30 years. You're paying for 40, draw it for 20, that's 60 years. It's going to be invested on average half the time. So if you could get a real return of 2-3%, maybe a bit more than 3%, that could double your money in that length of time. So you pay 3% for 40 years, draw it for 20 years, that gets to 6. If it's going to be invested, you're going to get a real return, hopefully. That could double it to 12. It's nowhere near 37%. Nowhere near 37%. People just don't understand that simple arithmetic that I just took you through. And it is simple. You pay for a number of years, you draw it for a number of years, and it's invested for a while, and you get some investment return. And that's it. That's it very simply. But people don't get it, and they're not saving enough. A lot of the defined benefit pension plans that were so successful for many years until accounting rules changed and governments made them too expensive were set up on the basis that members paid 5, the employee paid 10, 15% was going in. Use my simple arithmetic of double it for the period you put in and take out, and double it for the investment returns. 4 times 15% gets you to 60%, roughly a 2/3 pension. So I think, given the fact that people are living longer, given the fact that real rates of return are lower, you probably need to put in 20% if you're going to pull out, a 60 or 2/3 pension. And people aren't saving anywhere like that amount of money. Yeah.
Does that assume that people are including state pension in that? Because for your average employer, that would get.
No, this 3%, the 37% was how much they get out of their pension saving, not including the state. Right? Yeah, this was on top of the state. So, I mean, there is a lack of financial awareness. Lord Filkin, who's chairing the House of Lords Committee on Public Service and Demographic Change, said recently that people must be better informed and able to get a better idea of what sort of income they can get in retirement from their pension saving. And hopefully there will be more initiative from the government to achieve that. But the more immediate scandal, which Ros was certainly highlighting, the best estimate is that because people are not shopping around with the pension saving pots that are currently coming to maturity out of this year, they're losing effectively about £1 billion. So 500,000 people are losing about £1 billion of their saving simply by not shopping around for the best annuities. And that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. And the range of outcomes between the worst and the best can be 50% easily. So people are losing money, and they don't realise it. This is the issue. There is a lot of action going on. Ros referred to most of this, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But there is a lot of action. But the problem is it's not really addressing the core issue of getting people to save more and getting people to understand the choices that they have. And the level of communication, financial awareness, and so on is really a challenge that we need to face up to. And I think employers ought to have a role. They do have a duty of care to their people. They are in a position where they can't compulsorily retire people when they get to a particular age. So if their employees don't save enough and can't simply afford to retire and just want to carry on working, the employer's stuck. They're managing an ageing workforce, some people can work for longer if they're in desk-based roles, but if people are in manufacturing or climbing telegraph poles to put telephone lines up or digging holes in roads to mend water drains and so on, physically you can't do that if you're in your 70s. So if people are not saving enough, employers are going to have a challenge. They're being asked to auto-enroll people, and they're not necessarily, if people are auto-enrolled but then are left to their own devices, they could turn around to their employer and say, well, you didn't really tell me enough information to know that I should be saving more than I was saving. Okay, you put me in the scheme and it's all right, but you didn't really give me the rest. So I do believe that education should be made available through the workplace until such time as we've got much more financial awareness in the population generally, if we ever get to that stage. How much to save, where to invest it, what sort of options do I have at retirement. But I would also say that whilst education is necessary, I don't think that's necessarily sufficient to get people to do things. Because you can educate people and give them a range of options and they'll think, okay, I'll put that off for another day. So what else can be done to actually nudge people to do things? Great point, Neil, about getting the partner along, because that gives people a nudge to think about things seriously at that sort of trigger point. But is there a way of nudging people more frequently at an earlier stage of their career? So, for example, can you get your people to agree that when they get a pay increase, half of it goes into saving, half of it comes into the pay packet? So is there a way of automatically putting pension contributions to go up when people get pay increases? Is there another way of nudging through better targeting of messages, recognising that interactive or face-to-face is a much better way of getting people to do things? And I do think at some stage we need to take a more holistic approach, understanding that there are other things. Neil was making this point as well. Maybe the flexible benefits programme needs to be a bit more flexible and broader. People need to understand that they can invest in ISAs. There are these other vehicles that may make more sense rather than just putting everything into the pensions pot. And to your point, this is where this question was coming from. I believe actually it would be very helpful if there could be better clarification on what employers can and can't do in terms of where does education stop and where does advice start. And I believe there's a lot of generic advice that can be given, which isn't actually recommending that people use this particular product for this particular thing. If you remain on as a generic level, that doesn't need to be regulated. Certainly not in the workplace where there's a duty of care and there's a degree of trust going on. But I do think we could have more clarity, and to be honest, I think it would be helpful if, as in the US, there were a safe harbour law that allowed employers to give generic financial information and education to people without getting caught by disgruntled employees mounting lawsuits at the end. That happens in the States. There is this safe harbour, and employers don't think twice there about giving financial education and advice. not on specific products, but certainly generic, at a generic level. We've already referred to the fact that trustees are a bit of a silent player in this space at the moment. They're probably thinking more about getting people to contribute more and make the right investment choices. But I think too few trustees are focusing on the options at retirement. They should have a duty to act in the best interest of beneficiaries. They can't be acting in the best interest of beneficiaries if people are simply taking the default option in annuity at retirement. It can't be in the best interest of their members. We know that the pension regulator has issued principles for better member outcomes. One of those principles is about investment choices, so retirement choices. But the latest guidance from TPR is pretty silent actually on what trustees or employers could or should be doing at that particular point. Hopefully more guidance will come in future, but we'll just have to wait to see. But I do think that trustees do have a role on a trust-based pension. If it's a contract-based pension, there's not much trustees can do because there aren't any. So, we have to default back to the employer. But where do members go when they need advice? So those are the challenges. Nobody said it was easy. I agree that the biggest challenge is underfunding. Jerry was making this point earlier on. And basically people get on with their life until they can't work anymore. And these choices are too difficult to get into. Question mark, how can we help to influence that as an employer, as a trustee, as somebody who has a strong interest in the pensions space? Yes, the choices that are made in accumulation make a difference. Yes, the choices that are made at retirement make a difference. But it doesn't make any difference if people haven't contributed enough. So that's number one, but then the other two areas can be quite important too. I believe the state should do more to increase financial awareness in the population generally and to promote a savings culture, which we've lost from the UK. I think we need to get back to a savings culture, and financial awareness will help in that. And then I've already made some comments around what I think employers and trustees ought to be doing to help. Good. So I'd like now to ask Jonathan Whalley just to say a few words around some research that Wealth at Work has done, and I don't think you would be disappointed if we had a very few comments around what Wealth at Work is doing to help in this space as well. So that'll be the short commercial, but I promise you'll be very short. Jonathan.